how much scientific data has been released and been made public about our country during the pandemic. It tells us all sorts of things about our society and the impact of the coronavirus. So just for a moment, look at the impact of alcohol. There's a huge scientific fight over tobacco. Those are things that are not directly related to COVID-19, and yet we've learned a lot more about their impacts on our society. Look at the conversations around how do we de-densify informal settlements. Again, not directly related to COVID-19, but we're learning a lot about our society as a result of the disease. I haven't even mentioned the schools argument just yet. Well, Professor Ivan Turok is a scientist at the Human Sciences Research Council. Professor, good afternoon to you. This really has been a moment that has taught us how important knowledge about science, medicine and our society really is.
It's vitally important that we put science right up there alongside all the other considerations that influence tricky government decisions. We're in a very difficult situation, and it's really important we think about the facts, we think about the evidence, and that we take decisions in a very well-informed manner, rather than knee-jerk, blunt responses that will have a lot of unintended consequences.
How important is it for, it's one thing for leaders to be informed on that. What's it, the National Coronavirus Command Council, of course legally Cabinet makes these decisions, but it's also important for people on the ground to know, citizens to know what's forming these decisions, the science behind it.
It's vitally important for confidence and for trust in government. People need to be reassured that decisions are being made for the right reasons and not for the wrong reasons. Otherwise, people won't follow the guidelines, won't follow the protocols, and that will cause a lot of further damage to public health and to the economy if people are really increasingly skeptical and doubtful about the rationale for important decisions.
The institutions of higher learning that we have, I'm talking, people think about the universities, but all of the institutes that conduct research, they're meant to, what's the phrase, generate knowledge. They're knowledge generation institutions. Are they properly equipped to do the job?
That's a big question, Stephen. We are, like all public institutions, we're under a difficult financial circumstances at the moment, and budgets are being pruned left, right and centre. So it's hard to say that we're adequately resourced. However, I think we've been protected from some of the worst consequences, and I hope that looking forward that the government also recognises the crucial importance of science alongside all the other things that government spends money on.
It shows you, I would like to think, let me put it like this, a rational response to the pandemic would be to treble the funding on all medical research in the country.
Well, I wouldn't go quite that far, because I think, government has got very, very tough priorities, a difficult balancing act between these different concerns. I should also say that science, it doesn't work in isolation. Science, is part of society. Knowledge, technical knowledge is not perfect. Mistakes can be made. There are lots of uncertainties around science. So we shouldn't put it on a pedestal. It should be one of the key considerations that influence decisions, but not on its own. It must be weighed up against other really difficult factors, and risks and uncertainties also need to be taken into account. It doesn't give you 100% clear-cut answers to some of the very difficult trade-offs that we face in South Africa.
Professor, I've noticed, there is a conversation around disputes between scientists, and clever people who have 17 PhDs among the two of them can have huge arguments about what the right thing is to do. Are we managing those disputes properly? And I'm not just talking about here. Scientific information moves around the world so quickly now. It moves around via WhatsApp, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And these disputes are very important, Stephen. We shouldn't push them under the carpet. In fact, we should bring them out into the open. And I would encourage the government to publish the medical advice and the other advice notes it gets from its command council, because that will stimulate public debate, and it will help people to realize, some of the significant issues being discussed here. And public can play a part too, because, as I said, some of these decisions are tough choices that have to be made, and public opinion should weigh in alongside scientific advice. And so I would think that's very healthy to encourage debate around key issues that we face.
Some strange things are happening with scientists at the moment. I mean, in the US, Dr. Anthony Fauci, I mean, a man who's made his name, he's in charge of infectious diseases research, very important figure, I understand, in terms of the initial research around HIV, which came to have such a big impact here. I mean, he found himself on the cover of the Style magazine in the United States. I wouldn't have predicted that.
No, I wasn't aware of that, and I'm surprised as well. But clearly, in the current crisis, expert knowledge there's a premium attached to expert knowledge. People who really know what they're talking about, I think, are very important and have a crucial role to play, particularly with all the uncertainties around this virus, which we're learning day by day, different things about it. You know, we want people who have got this enormous insight into epidemics and pandemics. We want their best understanding and knowledge. And so it's appropriate, I think, that we give scientists due recognition for decades of investment into research on these tricky subjects.
There seems, I mean, in our society to a limited extent, but in other societies, there's some sectors of those societies that have almost a pushback against science in all sorts of ways. It can be around the sort of science of pregnancy. It can be around all kinds of other things. Do you see that? Some people just refuse to accept what I imagine to you is just simple scientific fact.
That's true, and there is a pushback, and there has been actually with the growth of popular politics around the world in the last decade or so. There's been an enormous pushback against experts of all kinds. And that's partly, I think the experts are partly to blame for that, because they put themselves on a pedestal. They say we're untouchable. They say our knowledge is objective and 100% truthful, and they don't open up the possibility, you know, that there are countervailing points of view, that they may not always be right. It's happened, for example, in economics, that experts have put themselves in this position of knowing everything, but economists didn't forecast the 2008 global recession, right? So basic things have come to light which do cast doubt on some of the knowledge and expertise of our top scientists. So it's healthy, again, that we don't put these people in a superior place, but that's not saying that we ignore and that we poo-poo scientific knowledge. I think it's really important that we take it very seriously, but not treat it as the only information that informs the decisions we make.
So then how do we make sure that people understand what scientific facts are and try and ensure that people are actually able to make decisions based on facts? I mean, I hate to say, I mean, my role is often presentation, right? I mean, presentation of scientific evidence can sometimes be important.
The presentation is crucial. So one of the things is we must avoid jargon that people don't understand. Many scientists talk in enormous jargon that no one else can really fathom. And many scientists make a career out of reinventing and inventing new terms and new notions and new words which just confuse people. So I think being clear and compassionate in the way we communicate with ordinary members of the public is really important. And not putting ourselves in a different place with a different language that other people can't understand. So being accessible is also really important. We should make ourselves available so that we do communicate, we do talk to, we do engage with ordinary people and the media to explain what we think and what we understand so that people get a better grasp of scientific knowledge.